Now, you might think this is a bit extreme, but it's really the perfect place to open the show. In today's show, we're talking about things that go above and beyond what you might expect, like plants that can really beat the heat, or grow in water, or are just really, really big. Extreme can mean a lot of things, so why don't we get started with some trees that are, well, big big. I wonder if there's a coffee shop around here somewhere.
Dardnalle is a riverport town. It was earlier than 1855 when they settled here.
I think what makes Front Street in Dardnalle quite unique is the fact that they have about 5 champion trees right along this particular street. We have at least 6 trees in Dardnalle that are now state records. 5 of them are located within about a 2-block area right here from Council Oak Park here on Front Street.
We have the Millennium Tree, which is at Council Oaks. It is the oldest tree in Dardnalle, and they estimate that between 400 and 450 years old.
Well, Council Oak got its name, it's a white oak species of oak tree. It got its name because in the 1820, when the Cherokee Indians and the white man were discussing the land, Black Fox with the Cherokee Indian tribe signed a treaty with the white man here underneath these trees. These trees are considered champions because of the size of them, how big they are, and the way we determine that is we basically take 3 measurements. We'll measure the circumference of the tree, how big around it is. We also measure the crown spread. We also get the height of the tree. The circumference and the height and the crown spread are put together in a formula, and that gives us what we call a bigness index. And that particular number is what determines if the tree is going to be a champion or not. The common persimmon tree is located about a block from here, and it is designated as one of the national records by Arbor Day. And when they found the tree to do the measurements to begin with, it had a basketball goal nailed to it, and the kids were playing basketball. And after we found out about that, then we got busy and started working on trying to get proper recognitions for the trees. And by doing so, one of the things we're required to do is to get a city ordinance made to protect those particular trees so they can't do things like that. If anyone thinks that they may have a champion tree or a tree they would like to get measured, they can contact their local state forestry people, and most of them will be glad to come out and take the measurements and see what they've got.
Over the years, I've become so jealous of my friends in California because they can grow Agave Americana outdoors. They don't have to bring theirs in. But here in midwinter, I'm giving mine a little bit of a haircut, a little bit of grooming. It's kind of spa time for the agaves. You see, this is a wonderful plant, and they're so architectural, and I love using them out in the garden in big containers. And let me tell you, they are indestructible. In the garden, I never have to water them through the summer. This one that's back here at the back was this size last year. That gives you an idea of how large they can grow. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm just cleaning them up a little bit. I'm just cutting off some of the long blades that have turned slightly yellow or they've become dead or brown. And I'm just doing that mainly so they'll clean up. And the other reason is that you always want to take off dead material off of a plant. The other thing that I'm doing here today is I'm just taking a trowel, and I've noticed with some like this one that there are lots of little pups that have come up on the sides. And all I'm doing is I'm taking the trowel and I'm cutting out these little pups. And let me just pull one out to show you all it takes to grow one of these things. It really doesn't take much root at all. This is a little baby, and I can plant this little guy in sandy soil up to there, and let me tell you, it will grow like there's no tomorrow. Now, as you might guess, these plants can take a lot of sun, unlike some house plants. So I have them in this window and this window behind me, and they have really thrived in this space. I just set them up on these metal tables, and it makes it easy for me to display them and to enjoy them and to take care of them. And just look at this, they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. This one is a dwarf form, but you see the form of the plant. It has a blade-like structure, very thick, almost succulent-like, lots of pernicious little thorns, but very, very drought tolerant, and I think a beautiful bouquet of foliage. If you've never tried growing some of these agaves, you really should. They're very satisfying. All right, Chris, here comes the last one.
All right.
Another bathing beauty.
Nice. Get that one in.
Hey,
why don't you come on in? The water's
I
fine.
think I will. Woo, that water feels good. Look at this water lily.
Isn't it
It's
beautiful?
just gorgeous. It closes up at night, but when it opens in the morning, it's just magical.
They're beautiful. Water lilies and lotuses are your deep water plants in a pond, and both of them require a lot of fertilization.
I mean, this has a long stem. I would think it would need a lot of fertilization with a big bloom like that.
Yeah, and you can find lilies anywhere from 18 like we have here to 36 inches. The leaves and the blooms will grow to the surface.
I've seen them where they've all virtually covered an entire pond.
And in a pond like this, you want to cover about 60 to 70% of the pond surface.
Keeps it cool, doesn't it? So with this fertilizer spike, you just shove it into the pot like this,
Right, just push it down.
and it's a slow release. And how often should I do that for my water lilies?
With our fertilizer, you're done. You are done for the season.
Full season.
Now, regular fertilizers, you're going to have to come in and do this about every 4 to 6 weeks.
All right, very good.
Also in the water, you'll find oxygenating plants generally, and they're going to, as the name implies, produce oxygen during the day to help aerate the pond.
Now, we're getting into some aesthetics here, but these plants along the edge also add to this ecosystem, don't they?
They do. These are our marginal or bog type plants, and you'll find rushes, some of the cattails, pickerels, taros are good. These are plants that like to keep their feet wet, but still grow up out of the pond. Some of them are bloomers and do put out flowers.
Yeah, like the pickerel. I love the shape of the leaf, and then it has that gorgeous purple flower.
Right. These two are going to be taking nutrients from the water, but they'll help to eliminate algae. So if you get a good balance of plants in the pond, you should have minimal algae problems.
Yeah. And all of these are planted in these baskets with gravel, and you can see some of the roots just beginning to grow through.
Right, starting to emerge.
That's fantastic. And these floating little gardens, they just add to the whole color scheme. We're going with pink because of my pink water lily. I think these are looking fantastic.
Well, one of the other neat things that's starting to trend with water people that own water gardens is some aquaponics, where they're actually growing herbs and lettuces in the floating baskets in their pond as well.
I just think that is so cool. I mean, here we have basil floating around and a little Italian parsley. Who would have known? You know, Chris, these floating baskets are actually really easy to plant, aren't they?
They are. You would take your centerpiece or your main plant, place it in the center, plant your other plants around the edges, and then fill it in with gravel to keep the dirt from getting into the pond.
In our case, what we used is this papyrus in the center, and then we added some of the acorus grass, which has that chartreuse color, and then we dropped in the potato vine, and then the double impatiens, these Rockapulco impatiens, and then packed in the gravel. And then lifting it helps too, doesn't it?
Right.
As you plant, because you want to get that weight in there to help anchor
And
it.
the basket drops into the water. Again, here the nutrients of the plants are going to take up some of the nutrients to help eliminate algae growing in a pond.
These are really, really fun. And then of course you've got the plants that are a part of the landscaping around your water feature.
That's another big part of it.
And we even planted blueberries last year, and they this year are loaded with blueberries.
See that?
Yeah, they're a bog plant. I mean, they love the moisture, so they're perfect for this naturalistic landscape that we've created here.
As well as the creeping jenny, which is always nice on waterfalls because it gives that cascading effect of the plant as well as the water.
So the water features are really an element that is for the garden 12 months out of the year.
Absolutely.
So here's the main room of the house. I'm really excited about how it all came together. You see, this room, being the largest, is 21.5 feet this direction by 14.5 this way. And what we wanted to do here is make sure that this room served at least two purposes. It needs to serve as a place for people to gather and sit, a sitting room, with the focal point being the fireplace, and a place for dining here at the dining table, with the dining table and the chandelier being the focus in this zone of the room. And it also serves in a way as a hall, because from the kitchen into the master bedroom, we wanted to make sure there was plenty of room to pass by easily. I love this table, which has a Gothic motif around the apron. Then I wanted to do something fun for the chairs. What could be more American or classic than these ladder back chairs? I found them in an antique shop, but they were just oak colored. They were in pretty good shape, but I decided I wanted to paint them red. And the seats in them were in really good shape, so I think I got a great deal on them. I bought all 6 chairs for $150. Then I had them painted slightly different shades of red. Again, just to sort of play with the eye just a bit. I love red because the eye is drawn to it. And that's why I painted this chandelier yet another shade of red than these chairs. So you have these different color vibrations going on. In the centerpiece, I found this huge alabaster bowl and then filled it with these balls that are made of saris. Don't you love all the color? So this is the dining space, and it couldn't be a dining space without a few elements that might help you serve. For instance, this corner cabinet is a place to store dishes, both in the shelves and below in the cabinet. And then over here, I designed this console, a narrow farm table that we cut down. Now, balance is very important in a room. When you look at this room face on, I wanted to make sure that both sides of the room were balanced. They certainly don't have to be symmetrical. I don't need the same object here as I have over there. So over here I used an armoire, which is a great place for an entertainment center. Above it I put a vintage picture and then a very large mercury glass vessel. And on this side, to pick up the browns of that armoire, I used these amber colored overscale lamps, which I just love. So you can see the tabletop, the amber colored glass, the tones of this picture echo the browns that we have over here on the other side. So the room does feel balanced. Now, I mentioned comfort a moment ago, and I really wanted a cozy little place where you could sit by the fire and enjoy a conversation with friends. And what we did here to achieve that is that we chose fabrics that have natural fibers in them. Love this Suzanne fabric. It's printed on a linen, and we actually slip covered some old vintage chairs here. Slip covers, I don't know, they just give it sort of a warm sort of feel. We even slip covered this sofa. You could seat 3 people on the sofa, 2 here, so you could seat 5 people easily in the space. The coffee table, I like the galvanized top, indestructible but very stylish looking, and also the way in which the wood frame of it has been distressed. I love the finish on it. It fits with our farmhouse chic. Now, speaking of a distressed finish, take a look at the focal point of the room, the mantle, and above it, the cartouche that we made out of old tools. You see, I went out in the barn and I went over to my aunt and uncle's house. I went around and prowled through the barns and outbuildings of a lot of my family members, and also hit a few junk shops and clustered these tools together. And I'll tell you, I didn't pay over $5 for any one of those tools. And I found this old leather strap, bound them together and tied it with that leather strap, and then we mounted it here as the focal point. And the mantle itself is an old mantle that I found over in Memphis in, well, a salvage building where they keep pieces and fragments of old buildings. It was really a lot of fun to go through there. And this mantle had really a lot of soul to it, and that's why I wanted it, because you can still see it has the old milk paint finish on it. It was very simple, comes from the 1830s, and it really fit our farmhouse chic look. But if you back away, you'll see we have the 2 French doors here, which bring light into the room. There are windows on either side, and then above, to help reflect light, I used a pair of oval mirrors that are made by Park Hill. And I think the combination of colors, shapes, forms, and textures really make this wall an interesting composition. It's the first thing you see as you come through the front door and into the entry hall. Don't you find that overscaled objects used in the home are really so underutilized by people?
I think people are afraid to take a large piece
Yes.
and to put it into a small
It's like,
space.
oh my gosh, will this fit in the house?
I need to have 5 or 6 small things instead.
Yeah, it's like too many little things, but one big thing or a few really large things, overscaled things, really creates impact.
And it fills the space beautifully.
I love this terrarium. I mean, gosh, what a great example.
Thank you. I mean, and again, a piece that has a previous life. It's been repurposed into something
What was
creative.
this originally?
This was actually from a general store and in the Midwest, and it was a nut container.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Where they'd scoop them out and you'd buy them by the pound or whatever.
And I quite
And
like
look
it
at
as
the
a
top.
terrarium.
Oh, I can see it has an acorn top. How interesting, a beautiful terrarium, and what a great centerpiece for this table. And speaking of oversized and large-scale pieces, this table is awesome.
Thank you. You've got yet a large object on a large table, and I
Right.
like that relationship.
And take a look at this colossal mid-century modern piece. I mean, this is just amazing. It's really, really overscale, but it works on this wall so well.
Well, and I think adding a little bit of color and whimsy helps this piece feel comfortable in any space.
And there's so many things you can do with it. These large pieces actually can help anchor a room, can't they?
They certainly can, as long as you don't get carried away
Right.
with too many large things.
That's it, right.
So that you can-
Where do I walk?
I can't get into the space, but it looks good. I think that's the idea, is the proportion of the one large item that leads to the scale possibly of another big piece within
Yes.
it.
So like in this case, we have a large credenza or sideboard, and then we have a large piece of art that hangs over it. One simple piece rather than multiple pieces.
Which I think would be distracting.
Yes, just having a few large objects really arrest the eye and draw your attention to it. Wow, this is quite a mirror.
Yes, it is, and it's definitely a large artifact.
You know, it's made of, it looks like ceiling tins.
That's correct. They're salvage ceiling tins from an old home in New Jersey.
And you know, you think, well, I have to hang a mirror on the wall, but you really don't. I mean, clearly it can just stand on the floor when it's this size.
And it will reflect into the space beautifully.
Right, and mirrors are a wonderful illusion in a room because the reflection makes the room, again, a small room, feel larger. You know, Julia, it's really counterintuitive, don't you think, that bringing a few really large objects into a small room actually makes the room feel larger?
And again, don't be afraid of those
that's it.
trials within your own home.
Yeah, no, it works every time. I see it over and over again. You know, I have to say, I am taken by this clock face. It's really quite colossal.
Thank you. Let's go look at it.
You know, this really is marvelous, this big round circle. Just the form of it is great. And then the fact that it's a clock face.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about a large artifact of something of this sort is it's a large piece, but it's also very airy.
It's ethereal.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And you know, these large objects, I think in today's design, it can come from so many places. I mean, they can be industrial, they can be fragments. I've seen people take, to your point, collections of just baskets and hang on the wall, or farm tools.
And I love nothing more than that look.
Yeah.
It always has a story.
So I think the point here is that, you know, dare to be bold, dare to go for those larger pieces.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
that's gonna be my new mantra.
Well, I think you're doing a fine job with it. Hey, we're taking fall decorating to an extreme. One of the reasons I love the fall so much is because of pumpkins. I'm crazy about pumpkins. They're just so interesting. They come in so many different beautiful colors and wacky shapes. I use them for all kinds of things. I use them inside the house for decorating. I use them on tables. I use them outside. For Halloween, we cut them in all sorts of shapes and sizes for jack-o'-lanterns and so forth. But I love taking pumpkins to the extreme, and that's what we're doing this year. You see, I got all of these pumpkins from a friend who raised them, and I got a buddy of mine to actually build the frame for a pumpkin house. You see, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these pumpkins you see lying around here, we're going to put them up on the vertical around this house, which is 12 feet by 10 feet. We're going to completely clad it in pumpkins of all colors and shapes and sizes. As you can see, it's a virtual mosaic or medley of pumpkins for the wall. We have white ones and orange ones and blue ones, and even some of these peanut pumpkins that are all puckered on the outside. And then around the entryway, yes, a house needs to have an entryway, we're surrounding it with these striped cushaw pumpkins. Now you can see these big building blocks of the house are supported by rings. There are about 358 of these rings. They're 2 different sizes, and they slide into a slot here like this, and they serve as a shelf for us to set the pumpkin in or lean the pumpkin against the back frame. You see, you need these to stabilize the pumpkins. These things are actually really heavy. That's why this thing needed to be built of steel. A variety of sizes is important here. We're using really big ones around the base for the foundation of the house, of course, medium-sized ones for the walls, and then these smaller ones to sort of fill in like this. Now this is no shabby shack. You see it's complete with windows here and here, window boxes, as well as a chandelier on the inside. And if you look on top of the roof, there's a wonderful weather vane. And in this case, it's adorned with a witch. Perfect for preparing for Halloween. And then of course there's the roof. You may be wondering what we'll cover it with. Well, it could be any range of materials, straw, ornamental grasses, or even corn stalks, which is what I plan to do. Cover it entirely with corn stalks so it looks like a thatched cottage. Like I said, this is the time of year to get extreme and have some fun. Well, I better get busy. I've got a house to build.
My name is Jacek Peczkowski. I'm with Steelheart Limited, specialized in ornamental iron. We design the pieces and also create them. That's actually designed for multi-purpose. It can be a pumpkin house, hydrangea house, it can be wedding house, it can be many applications.
Hey, thanks for joining me for today's show. I hope some of these extremes find their way over to your place. And if they do, I hope you'll post some of those pictures on my Facebook page. Now, to quote Bonnie Raitt, I'd rather feel things in extreme than not at all. Until we meet again, I'm Alan Smith for Garden Home. Now, how am I going to get down from here? I mean, this place doesn't have an elevator. Now, to quote Bonnie Raitt, I'd rather feel okay, all right. I'd rather feel things in extreme than not at all. House is complete with windows. This is no shabby shack.